year 4 ages second year students. Your final examination is also knocking at the door. So I'll try to give an idea about the chapters which contains what type of topics and which are important for you from the examination point of view. There are a number of topics, I think 10, 20. So whether it is possible for me or not to complete all the chapters, I am not sure, but I am starting from today, and that is first chapter from that one, that is contemporary world politics. First one is Cold War. So from this chapter you will have to remember, or you will have to study, or you will have to go through first what is Cold War. All of you are already aware of all these things because already your final examination is coming. So what is Cold War? All of you are aware of the fact. Cold War means not hot war. Cold War means actually tension like situation, suspicion between two groups or two countries, whether one will attack another or not. Always there is tension of attacking one country by another, but there is no direct war. So the tense like situation where the two countries are not believing on one another, and both the countries are suspicious about the activities of others, and every moment there is a chance of direct war. That situation can be termed as Cold War. So that is Cold War, but you must have to know why this term was used after the Second World War. Actually, after the Second World War, two countries, one is USA, that means United States of America, and another one is USSR, that means Soviet Russia. These two countries became superpower. Britain and France, they were also there, but they were not as much powerful as America and Soviet Russia. But ideologically, their ideology were totally different. America actually following capitalist system, and Russia following the communist system. So both the countries are very much interested to spread their own ideology to other countries, and that is why actually tension started between them, and that tense like situation can be termed as Cold War. So then you will have to know about the causes of the Cold War. First one is ideological differences. Already I told you there are two types of ideology prevailing at that time in the international arena. One is communism and another one is capitalism, and both are totally different from one another. For example, capitalism always support private property. Capitalism is in favor of independent business. Capitalism is favor of private industries, private production, etc. And communism is in favor of nationalized production. All the economic system should be controlled by the state. There should not be any scope for private property, etc. So both are totally different, and both the countries, that means America and Soviet Russia, both were interested to spread their ideology to other countries. And that is why tension started between these two countries. The second one is Truman Doctrine. So who was Truman? Truman was the president of America at that time. And Truman thought that if we assist other countries by giving them financial aid, giving them money, they will become much more strengthened, and they can also resist Soviet Russia if Soviet Russia is interested to establish their hold in those countries. So doctrine means his principle. So Truman started a principle of giving financial aid or money to Western countries so that they can become strong enough, and they can resist if anyone interfere in their internal affairs. So because of giving aid to other countries, that creates suspicion in the mind of Soviet Russia. Why Truman is doing all these things? So that is also not good for us. Then next one is Marshall Plan. Marshall was the Secretary of USA. So what Marshall did, he also thought that when the countries became very much poor, the Soviet Russia took the chance and entered into that country, helping them by giving assistance, and ultimately that country embraced, or that country adopted, communist system. So Marshall thought that those which are poor country, we will give money to them and they will ultimately become powerful, and Soviet Russia uh, would not be able to interfere on those countries. So that was Marshall Plan, and because of Marshall Plan also, Soviet Russia become very much suspicious about the intention of America. Why America are doing this type of things? They are giving money, they are giving various aid and assistance to other countries, and in that process they are increasing their friends in the international field. So we will become isolated, so we will have to do something. So that is the condition. Then Molotov plan. Molotov was Russia's leader. So Molotov found that some of the Eastern European countries, those were poor countries, they did not receive financial aid from Marshall, that means from America. So he thought that okay, we will interfere in those countries and we will help and assist them. So Molotov plan again created tension in the mind of USA. What will happen? After that, military bloc. Military bloc means, though after the Second World War, UNO was established. UNO means United Nations Organization, and that international organization was established to this international organization was created for establishment of peace and tranquility in this world. But no one started believing in UNO. On the other hand, some of the countries under the leadership of America, they have formed a military alliance, and that is known as NATO, NATO. I am not going to read out the abbreviation of NATO. You find out the abbreviation of NATO and just remember it, because in the exam you may get that type of question. So when America formed a military alliance known as NATO, on the opposite side, Soviet Russia also created a military alliance by taking including the members who are communist countries. So that military alliance is known as SEATO. SEATO, then CENTO, these type of SEATO, CENTO, NATO, you must have to read out the abbreviation of those names. So these are all military organizations first started by America and then followed by Soviet Russia. They form military alliances, means they will help those who are joining in that military bloc. They will get help and assistance whenever they are attacked by foreign countries. So this type of military alliances is also very much responsible for the Cold War. So in a nutshell, these are the causes of the Cold War, and already I told you about military alliances also. Then Arms Control Treaty. During 1960s, after 1960s, number of arms control treaty took place among Soviet Russia, America, sometimes Great Britain, France, etc. Actually, both Soviet Russia and America, both were nuclear power. So if the Cold War turned into a hot war, and if they used the nuclear arsenals and armaments, etc., then whole world will destroy. So both America and Soviet Russia, they were aware of that fact, that no one can use the nuclear power. And that is why, though both of them are not enemy of each other, then also they took the initiative and they have signed many arms control treaty. So now LTBT, NPT, Nuclear Proliferation Treaty, SALT 1, SALT 2, START 1, START 2, LTBT. You just go through the abbreviation of these arms control treaty. Find out with whom these arms control treaties signed and in which year. Because they signed this treaty only, they were aware of the fact that if any country use the nuclear weapon against another, Third World War will break out. So these treaties were signed during that period. So you just go through the abbreviation, find out with among those countries this treaty were signed and date also. Okay. Then another important thing in this chapter is Cuban Missile Crisis. Cuban Missile Crisis is an important aspect of Cold War. So America, what happened? America actually supported many governments which were actually not running their administration properly, and they were running the administration not for the betterment of their own citizens. They were only interested to fulfill their own interests, etc. So at one time the leader of Cuba was known as Battisti, but he was not a good person. So he was removed from the post, and Fidel Castro became the leader of Cuba. Okay, but Fidel Castro, he was a communist person, and when Fidel Castro became the leader of Cuba, from that time Soviet Russia make a contact with Cuba, and at one time Soviet Russia established their military hold in Cuba. When this type of situation arose, America started threatening USSR or Soviet Russia to remove from Cuba. Otherwise, they will attack Cuba and they will use nuclear weapon against Soviet Russia. So ultimately, because of the use of nuclear weapon, the threat of using the nuclear weapon ultimately bring end to this crisis, and Soviet Russia taken away its military hold from Cuba. So you study the Cuban Missile Crisis because short note may be there regarding Cuban Missile Crisis. Then another thing you will have to study from this chapter, that is NIEO. That means New International Economic Order. New International Economic Order, that is also important. So in this particular chapter, you will find that we have studied about Cold War, but at that time number of countries got independence, and those countries were known as less developed country because almost all of them were poor countries. So they started saying that economic order which was following by the countries in the international field, that should be changed, and that's why New International Economic Order was adopted in international field, and that new international economic order always on that new international economic order actually try to help the less developed country. As for example, they said that less developed countries should have control in their own resources, own natural resources, because earlier what happened, the natural resources of the poor countries were taken away by the capitalist countries. So that this new international economic order, they said that they will have their own control in their own resources. Secondly, they said that those who are developed countries, they will have to provide market to sell the goods of the less developed country, because if the less developed country produce goods and services, where they will have to sell. So the big countries or the richest country or the developed country, they should have to provide the market so that they can sell their commodities, etc. And thirdly, the more developed country should have to give them technological know-how in cheap rate. Okay, so these type of things are there in that new international economic order. So you study that one also. And last one is NAM. From NAM means non-aligned movement. Aligned means friendship. So non-aligned movement means not making friendship with any bloc. There are two blocks during the Cold War. There are two blocks. One is capitalist bloc and another one is communist bloc. But at that time, number of countries, they got independence. I already told you. And our first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, he in 1946 appealed to the leaders of other third world countries, other underdeveloped countries, to join together and form a group, okay, without joining either in the communist bloc, that is Soviet bloc, or in the capitalist bloc, that means in the Russian bloc. And they said that those countries which are not joining either in the two groups, they will be termed as, or they will known as NAM. NAM means not NAM, non-aligned countries. And NAM means it is a movement, non-aligned movement. So who are the leader of those movements? Jawaharlal Nehru of India, Joseph Broz Tito of Yugoslavia, Sukarno of Indonesia, and Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt. So they were the leader. You remember the names of those leaders who took the initiative, and ultimately they had started this particular organization, and number of third world countries joined with them, and still NAM is working. So from NAM you may get the question like that, whether NAM means neutrality, whether non-aligned movement means neutrality. Non-alignment does not mean neutrality. It means by playing active part, the countries are interested to establish peace and stability in this world. So it is not neutrality. So you just study that one. Then how India, whether India was benefited by adopting this policy or not. Yes, of course India was benefited, because though India said that they will not join in either of the two blocs, but generally India maintained good relation with Soviet Russia more than America, and they got various kind of facilities from Soviet Russia, and along with that they try to maintain relation with that America also. And in the meantime, in India also, by taking help from other countries, they actually develop their own economy, they can move forward, etc., etc. And as they did not join in either America or Soviet Russia, so they was little bit tension free in that period. So those countries which did not join in either of the two blocs remain in the non-aligned movement. Why they have adopted this policy? Because they thought that if they join in either of the two blocs, they will have to face tension, and they will be always tense of when war will take place, and wherefrom they will get money to engage in war. Then if they remain neutral, they can spend their money for their economic development, etc. And by joining together in NAM, they can also try to establish peace and tranquility in this world. So these are the things you must have to remember from this chapter, that is Cold War. I will try my best to give an idea of each and every chapter. So today it is up to here, and it is my request to all the students, if you are if you find out any difficulty with any topic or any chapter, you can directly call me, and my phone number is, wait, I'll write my phone number here, that one. So thank you. Tomorrow I will take another video.